some new Real Housewives of New Jersey stories. So one, we're gonna get into the whole Rachel Fuda, who threw a little shade at Teresa. But Teresa, of course, is clapping back because Rachel Fuda basically claimed that the fake friendships between the OGs of the Real Housewives of New Jersey has basically ruined the show. And Teresa trying to say, some shady shit. We'll get to that in a second. But hold on as I pull up this picture. She said, now she thinks she's Mariah Carey because she said, "Why is she so obsessed with me?" Giudice commented on page 6 Instagram post about our interview with Fuda. We caught up with the latter after Sunday's Off the Rails special, which replaced a traditional reunion for season 14 due to the dividend state of the Garden State girls. Now, Fuda, who's 33, congratulations, by the way, she's pregnant. She announced that on the finale, and she showed, she did a whole photo shoot with John and all her kids, including the oldest son that John had with his previous wife, the junkie that's in jail or whatever, that, Teresa and them try to get information from. But I'm like, bitch, you're not even in that child life. Like, you have no power here. So what are you doing? So, but they also said Fuda watched the finale back with pals Melissa Gorga, Margaret Josephs, Danielle Cabral, and Jen Fessler in one room of Rails Steakhouse in Towaka, New Jersey, while Giudice, Jennifer Aiden, and Jackie Goldschneider viewed the episode from another. And if y'all was worried about what happened with Black Dolores, she was basically, typical, I'm Switzerland. So they treated her like Switzerland. She was just hopscotch between the both rooms. She said, "We have true relationships with each other, and I think that's the thing that was so unique about our room for the watch party," Fuda said on the latest episode of Page Six's virtual reality podcast. She went on to draw a comparison between true relationships versus manufactured relationships, saying, "I feel like when you were watching our room, it's like a group of friends bantering, making comments, gasping, laughing, like all those little things that we would do if we were sitting on my living room couch, and we have done." Now, the Bravo celebrity who dropped her pregnancy bombshell at the end of Sunday's special believes Ada and Goldschneider are merely accomplices in Giudice's perceived plan to take down her on-screen adversaries. She said, "You watch the other room and it's like, okay, Teresa, what's the narrative now? What are we going to say? What do we have to prove now? It's just very manufactured now, in my opinion. I think that's the biggest problem. I think our show is truly lacking authenticity in its relationships and friendships." And you want to know something? It's no shade, but Rachel said what she said. And I 1,000% agree with her on this. I do feel like with Teresa and the whole thing of these girls filming, first of all, that husband of hers, Louis, he has to go. First of all, he's toxic. He's trash. We've seen all the things that he's been doing on the show. And then even in the finale where he said that gross shit about Margaret's son. And it's like, even at a certain point, the one thing that I've noticed about the show, and this is how they go to show that Teresa, that love bubble, she's so far down in that like in the sunken place, is no pulling her back. The show always had a limit. There was one thing you never did, and that was what you brought in people kids. You never brought up people children. You never said anything shady about them. And I think she said something about Melissa Gorga and her brother's oldest son, Joey, where I think she tried to allude that Joey is not the biological son of her brother. Now, when you start bringing things, it's like, what are you doing, ma'am? First of all, that's your nephew. And the one thing we've seen on TV is that even when they had the little charity game that they do every year with Dolores, even though Joe and Melissa were not speaking to Louis and Teresa, she was like, "Go kiss your aunt." Like, show respect. And who can, like, whether or not if it's on camera or whatever, she was smart enough to do that on camera. You don't know what people's intentions or what's in their mind or whatever, because we're not psychic. We're not somebody that can read people's minds, whatever the case is. But the perception of when we're watching someone on TV, if she goes and says, "Be respectful, go kiss your aunt," and so my mother taught me to be that same way too. Even if I'm not speaking to certain members of my family and I run into them, I encounter them, whether I like them or not, or whether whatever the case is, show respect. That was the way I was raised. So I totally get what Melissa was doing with that. Teresa has such a hard-on for Margaret, and the fact of the way Margaret has been coming at her or whatever the case, because Margaret had the audacity, not the right, but the audacity to question Louis, which everybody's doing. It ain't just Margaret. It's people that watch the show because, like I said, when y'all start bringing people in your relationships on these TV shows, wherever the case is, they start a whole vetting process, meaning the sleuths of the internet go out and they start digging. Who is this person? What is their intentions? Let's look up their past. We've seen it happen many a times when we watch reality shows. And I do agree that those feel manufactured. When you watch a lot of the banter between the people on the show, you genuinely feel like Melissa and Rachel hang out, that and Danielle, they all kind of kiki and hang out. The one thing I love about the Real Housewives of New Jersey is the male camaraderie. When Joe Gorga has, Frank Sr. and, all the other husbands of the wives that all hang out together, when they have them over there doing shots, they're doing, they're smacking each other in the face with dildos, and they're, doing shots off of blow up dolls or whatever the case is. Like, you genuinely feel, even if it's for the show, because, you got to heighten things up for reality TV. You really feel like these are people that would hang out together. I'm like, those would be the type of dudes that I would hang out with at my big age. So I definitely feel that camaraderie with them. When it comes to Teresa, it seems like her friendships are one-sided. Even Jen Aiden alluded to that because she was like, oh, well, you trying to force me to be friends with Danielle Cabral. After we had that little situation where she smacked me upside the head with the cup because she did push her. And, Teresa, you are vindicated because you did turn your head. And she was like, well, I'm friends with them. But she was like, and I'm going to try to get y'all to make up. But she's like, but wait a minute. But then if I do that to you, it's a problem. But no, I have to explain things. And it's like, girl, we see what you're doing. You're not a real friend to her. And I don't think Dolores is a real friend to her either. And I don't think, and then all of a sudden she wasn't even getting along with, what's her name? Jackie Goldstein. She wasn't getting along with her before. Because remember, y'all hated each other. She was out here saying all this other stuff, but because you need people to film with. And then if you look at Teresa's entourage versus Melissa, how come there's more, I don't want to sit up here and do a pissing match. You know how like Trump do, where he loved bringing up, I had the biggest, audience, because, when you start, sizing, being a size queen when it comes to audiences and who has the most this and most that, that sends him into a tizzy. That's his Achilles heel. Then try to compare himself to damn Martin Luther King. I said, this old orange bastard don't get off my line with that foolishness. Now, speaking of tans, let's get back to these two. So when you have a situation where it's just like, you have more of the people hanging out and you see the energy in that room versus the energy in the room with Teresa, we have to talk about that. We have to point that out. Why is it a problem? And look, and if the tree huggers, the ones that be in a damn cult, want to continue to sit and fan the flame and do all this other stuff, y'all go ahead and do that. Don't bring that shit over here because you'll get cussed out. But for the most part, we need to call a spade a spade. She doubled down on the shit when Louis apologized because he don't like, when the backlash came along with what he said about Margaret's son. On Margaret in that whole situation. The backlash, he took it back. Then it was a recent thing with him in the podcast where, let's talk about it. He said over there when they was talking about the whole, her daughter, like how free she is with her daughters and how they have this opening, which I've always said was a problem on the show. She too damn, them kids is too loose with being in regards of, they should not be knowing personal adult stuff. Kids need to be staying in the kids' place. Now Gia is at the age, though 23, I believe, where she can come in and assert herself or whatever the case is. But Teresa, you need some friends. You should not be confiding in your children and building this narrative of, the back and forth and all the other stuff. You shouldn't be incorporating kids in that. Even though, yeah, they're part of the reality show, but you should not be poisoning your children's mind. That's what I be thinking that Angelina Jolie be doing with her kids towards Brad Pitt. Y'all shouldn't be incorporating that with that. But when he went and said something or another about, oh yeah, that you should go, girls should go to the club and wear thongs and all other stuff. Like, why did you sit up here and talk about her children wearing thongs? And it was in a podcast, and then after all this came out in the backlash, then they had to remove. So a lot of times y'all do things for the camera. Like, don't even forget last year when they was in the car and Louis deliberately said on camera, oh, I'm not gonna invite Joe and Melissa to the wedding or to the engagement party, whatever the case was, whatever it was. And then Teresa gave this look like, we're filming. Which goes to show how fake they are over there, how disingenuous they are, that a lot of this shit y'all doing is performative. Why can't we call that out? So stop being in the cult, stop being blinded by people, because what these people going to give you? You think they're going to give you a spot on a reality show? Like, stop being blinded by the mess. Like, my thing is, I call it all out. And I'm sure that Melissa and all them isn't innocent, but and whatever the situation is. But the thing is, what's going on in this show, and she's had a horrible season. I'm sorry, Teresa, but you had a bad season. And a lot of the stuff that's going on in your personal life regarding all the things Louis doing, and maybe he's got you, you know, blinded or whatever the case is. I just feel like you're so far down deep in this cult, in this whole, you know, bubble or whatever of delusion. You can't crawl your way out of that. So I don't feel like Rachel said anything remotely bad. So you can sit up there and make your little comments and pout all you want. First of all the filter on this damn picture. You know, she has been getting dragged lately for photoshopping her bikini photos and stuff. You know, people been calling her out on bad Photoshop. But Rachel looks good here. Shout out to her. You know, she is pregnant. So, and then, you know, this has been a lot of crazy stuff that's going on the show. And so I feel like at this point, the future of the housewives, y'all need to set an example. Y'all was quick to cancel Kenya Moore and get her fired. The way that this show has been so damn toxic, and Louis being at the helm of all this toxicity, and Teresa getting so caught up in that mess because she's busy out here trying to deflect all the attention off of her marriage because of whatever shenanigans he got going on behind the scenes. I feel like at this point she need to go. Jen Aiden need to go. I mean, as much as even though Melissa and Joe is a problematic, I guess for sake of purposes, y'all probably have to get rid of them too. But I am curious to see who gets to stay and who gets to go, because at this point, I feel like at the end of this, and her making $2 million for a season, girl, you don't have control over. Oh, I'm gonna film with this one. I'm not doing a reunion. I was like, excuse me. First of all, I run the show over here. Andy Cohen need to put that foot down, or the people over at Bravo, the overlords. No, sis, you are going to film this thing. You're going to sit here and we're going to do this reunion. If you can't participate, then there's things that got to be put in place. Meaning, you either going to take a pay cut, we're going to have to cut down some of your episodes, or you can unemployment lines that way. So I say all this to say, even though this was a long one, because I was like, when it comes to Jersey Housewives, it's so much to put down. What do y'all think of this story? Do you feel that Rachel Fuda is, you know, has made some valid points in what she said regarding how she says that our friendships, you know, our camaraderie with the people that were in that room and who they was filming with this season was more genuine and organic versus a lot of the other ones. Because I feel like if Jen would have went against Teresa probably been like, oh, well, don't bring her back next season. I genuinely don't even feel when the cameras stop rolling, they're real friends. I really feel like that a lot of it is y'all faking it for the cameras because y'all need screen time with people, and you won't continue to be her, you know, her water carrier. And that's fine. But just know that it's going, you know, with all this crazy that's been going on with Jen carrying the bone for Teresa, and the judge, I mean, you know, not the judge, the lawyer doing what he was doing with the Margaret stuff, and Louis and his mess, and y'all gonna end up on the unemployment line. So let me know what you guys think of this story in the comments down below.